Today, we're diving into a book that people have called both a masterpiece of strategy and, well, a guide for psychopaths. We're talking about Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power, and we are going to break down the core principles of this very controversial classic. This quote from Machiavelli is the perfect, almost brutal starting point. It really cuts to the core of the book's whole philosophy. Power isn't about being nice, it's not about being fair, it's about being effective. And look, that's an uncomfortable idea, for sure, but it's the foundation for understanding the hidden rules that kind of govern our interactions. So what is this philosophy, really? At its heart, the book argues that power is this constant, amoral social game. It's being played in your office, in your friend groups, absolutely everywhere, whether you choose to see it or not. And just ignoring the game, that doesn't make you exempt, it just makes you a pawn. Greene's whole point is that life hasn't fundamentally changed all that much since the days of kings and queens. The people in charge, they still want to feel secure and superior. So understanding this whole courtly dynamic is really the first step to navigating it successfully, instead of just being crushed by it. Okay, so how do you even begin to play? Well, the first stage isn't about some big, bold action. It's actually about something much more subtle. Controlling perception. It's about crafting the very lens through which everyone sees you. Your reputation is your single most valuable asset. The book frames it as the cornerstone of power. Because it gets there before you do. It works for you or against you before you even walk in the room. It can make your flaws seem charming or your strengths seem threatening. It's kind of like the silent workhorse of your power. Just take the story of Mi Tsuxia. His stellar reputation for being a good guy completely reframed what was a criminal act into one of virtue. The act itself didn't change at all, but the perception of it did. And it was all because of his pre-established character. Okay. But what if you're just starting out? You're an unknown. Well, the book's strategy here is surprisingly counterintuitive. The legendary showman P.T. Barnum, he understood a fundamental law of public life. It is far, far better to be slandered and attacked than to just be ignored. See, indifference is the death of power. Controversy, on the other hand, that's a spotlight. Barnum absolutely thrived on controversy. He never complained about bad reviews. In fact, he would give his harshest critics the best seats in the house. He knew that as long as people were talking about him, good or bad, he was in a position of influence. And this insight from Picasso, it just perfectly captures the final piece of managing perception. Once you have their attention, you have to keep them off balance. Being predictable makes you seem common, easy to dismiss. But unpredictability, that suggests a kind of mastery that other people can only watch in awe. So you've crafted your image, you've captured their attention, but how do you actually apply this stuff when you're in direct competition? Well, this next stage is all about mastering strategy in your interactions with others. I mean, how do you handle this classic problem, right? A rival who gets credit for your work. A direct confrontation would be messy, it would make you look petty. Brunelleschi, he chose a much more elegant path. He basically weaponized his own value by strategically taking it away. By faking an illness, he created a vacuum that only he could fill. And this made his worth totally undeniable. And it forced the city officials to come begging for his return, but on his terms. So this move, it established his power without a single direct fight. He baited the trap by making himself indispensable, and then he just waited for everyone else to walk right into it. He controlled the entire game by refusing to play by their rules. But of course, some problems can't be solved with that kind of subtlety. Some threats are more like weeds in a garden. They're just going to spread if you don't deal with them at the root. The logic here is, well, it's simple and it is ruthless. A group's negative energy can often be traced back to just one charismatic, discontented person. So you don't negotiate with them, you don't try to appease them. By isolating or removing that one individual, the group they influence loses its cohesion and just falls apart. Mastering your opponents is one thing, but the book argues that true, lasting power comes from mastering the final and most advanced level of the game, your own mindset. This section is all about psychological self-preservation, and that starts with choosing your company wisely. The moods and habits of the people around you are way more contagious than you think. You have to learn to tell the difference between these two types. Infectors often show up as victims, right? They draw you in with pity, but their intense misery is usually self-inflicted and it will drag you down. You want to associate instead with those who are a source of pleasure. Their good fortune and intelligence will actually elevate you. But the book's most important lesson on self-mastery is arguably this. There is one enemy you have to pay more attention to than any other, and it's one you face every single day. Wasting your time and emotional energy on minor annoyances is just a massive strategic failure. True power lies in knowing what to ignore. Disdaining the things that can't truly hurt you, that is the ultimate sign of control. Don't let yourself get dragged into every little fight. And ultimately, the book's most crucial lesson is really this. Power is an art, not a science. These laws aren't some rigid checklist you have to follow. They're tools in a toolbox, instruments to be adapted to the endless complexities and nuances of human behavior. And that's the question the book really leaves us with, isn't it? Is it a manual for aspiring tyrants, or is it a field guide to protect yourself from the manipulation that's all around us? It challenges us to look at the world, to see the game being played, and then to consciously decide what role we want to take. So are you going to be a player or a pawn?